Welcome. This is Samantha Skelly, and you are listening to the Hungry for Happiness podcast, where we dig deep and discover how to reconnect into your body, heal your relationship to food, and finally feel the liberation and freedom you desire. Kleenex is encouraged, and pants are optional. What's up, Phoenixes, and welcome back to the Hungry for Happiness podcast. You are listening to episode number 17 with Christine Hassler, and I am Samantha Skelly. This conversation with Christine, I felt energized and I felt excited the entire time. For those of you who do not know Christine Hassler, she is a force. She's one of these beautiful women who has been in this industry for quite a while, and she has never swayed from her integrity, and that's what I appreciate so much about her. She's just so knowledgeable in the realm of personal development, and we get into the fundamental reasons why so many of us don't fully jump into our transformation with both feet. You know that feeling of like, having like one foot in, one foot out. We really want it, but we don't know why we're fully not in it yet. This episode really digs into that pattern. We talk about pain, fear, anger, and the big one, purpose. For those of you who are constantly saying, I don't know how to find my purpose. For those of you who are searching for your purpose, Christine gives a different definition of what purpose truly is. And you may find that you're actually exactly where you need to be. Also, for those of you who's resonated with this episode and the message Christine delivered, she's going to be doing a free webinar on this called the No Regrets Masterclass, how to transform your struggles into superpowers. So that is happening on October the 11th at 5 p.m. and the link will be in the show notes. Christine is the best-selling author of 3 books, most recently, Expectation Hangover, Free Yourself from Your Past, Change Your Present, and Get What You Really Want. She left her successful job as a Hollywood agent to pursue a life she could be passionate about. For over a decade, as a keynote speaker, retreat facilitator, spiritual psychologist, and life coach, she's also the host of the top-rated podcast, Over It and On With It, which I know many of you found me on that podcast. She's been teaching and inspiring people around the world for years. Christine believes once we get out of our own way and we can show up for ourselves, we have the ability to truly create meaningful impact that we're all designed to make. You can visit her at www.christinehassler.com. I just want to remind you that we are currently enrolling for the Society, our signature group coaching program, which is a 6-month journey to finally end the battle you have with food and your body. This program is by application and invitation only, so when you apply, we'll hop on a call and we'll make sure that it is the perfect fit for you. If you go to www.hungryforhappiness.com/society application, all the details are there for you. I hope you enjoy this episode. What's up, Phoenixes, and welcome back to the Hungry for Happiness podcast. I am extremely excited about this episode. My new friend, Christine Hassler, is with us today. Thank you, girl, so much for hopping on.
Oh my gosh, of course. And I love that we're like neighbors.
I know, right? It's like, I'm surprised you can't hear what I'm saying right now from your house because you're literally just down the road.
I know.
So Christine and I met at a lunch this was a few months ago, and I just fell in love with, you're the real deal. It's interesting as I was creeping on you for this interview. I was like looking at some of your YouTube videos from like 8 years ago, and it's really a testament to your commitment to your work and the level of mastery that you pursue in this work. It's absolutely inspiring. You're not in it to dip your toes in or just like, let's see if this life coaching thing is cool. Like the industry is very diluted with a lot of that right now, but you truly are the real deal. And I can say that with just full confidence and just knowing you as a person and just seeing your stuff. It's real, and it's you hold yourself to a very high standard and continually work on your craft. And that's a beautiful thing that I think most life coaches, spiritual teachers don't do. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much for that acknowledgement. I was very lucky to have coaches and people that were the real deal that called me on my shit early. And, I've always been my own best client
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
And I'll
Yeah.
always be a seeker, and I'll always have a coach, and I'm always learning and growing. And I just love this work. Like, I think one of the things that's so kind of great about my journey is I never wanted to be a coach. Like, it found me, and people were like, you need to do this. You need to do this. So in a lot of ways, I think that's sort of not a better way, but often like a more authentic way to find our way into our path is when it just is like, oh, okay, I say yes to this.
Yeah.
And I love it. I love people. I love connecting. And I fell in love with you at that lunch too. And it takes a real deal to see a real deal. So thank you.
Thank you. You're so welcome. So first question we ask all our guests is, what is the number one thing about life that makes you feel most alive?
Right now it's the ocean. Like one of my childhood dreams, and ever since I moved to California, I had two sort of like physical dreams: have a convertible and live on the water. I've always, like, whenever I've gone on trips and I've lived on the water, or I've had like a place on the water, I've just never wanted to leave. And so part of my big move from LA down here was to like manifest this dream of living on the water. And so like right now I'm looking at the ocean, and I just like, I never get sick of it. And there's just something about it that is so connected to the feminine. So it's constantly renewing itself. There's no sense of control. It's different every day. The sound, the smell, it just is like, and my life is very busy, zigzaggy all over. And so coming home, and just having the ocean like there is like, that's what I'm most jazzed about life right now is the ocean. Very simple.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. So profound. I was actually down right in front of your house this morning going for my morning beach walk, and I was just looking out at the ocean, and I'm like, thank you for being so forgiving and consistent. And that was like something that just like came through me as I was like just looking at the ocean. I'm like, it's always here for us. It's always here for us to like acknowledge it, recognize its beauty. And it's just always like giving. It was just like, thank you. I totally get where you're coming from. Are you a Pisces or are you a water sign?
No, I'm an earth sign.
Oh, interesting. So I really, what I want to talk to you about today is an area of your work that I really admire, and I know our listeners are going to just gain huge value from what you have to say. And so the first part that I want to dig into is decision making. It's so interesting. A lot of the times when we talk about this a lot at Hungry for Happiness is sometimes the hardest part is just absolutely deciding and burning all of the boats, because when we do that, and I know just looking at my life, looking at like business, relationships, growth, anything, the hardest part was getting myself to absolutely 100% commit and not have any escape routes of if I fail, this will happen, right? Because I think we underestimate our potential to fully show up when we do not give ourselves another option. And I think that sometimes, and I'd love for you to share on this, is the piece of transformation that people are really not quite understanding. Like they think it's a good idea. They really want it. They want everything, but then they still give themselves an escape door. And when we show up for ourselves, miracles can truly happen when we have this level of like inevitability about where we want to go. So I just love to talk about how do we get ourselves to that position, and what is the fear blocking us from truly jumping in with 2 feet?
Jumping into transformation with 2 feet?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's a lot of things, and I think it's different for different people. But I think the biggest obstacle that most people face to personal transformation is they come from the orientation that something's wrong with them.
Yeah.
And when you come from that place, it's scary to look at, because you're like, if I open Pandora's box, I'm going to find all these things. And it's not very inspiring to come from it as, well, there's something wrong with me and I need to fix it.
Yeah.
So most people come into transformation with an expectation hangover, which is things didn't go according to plan. They did go according to plan, but you don't feel like you thought you would, or life's just thrown you an unexpected curveball, like a breakup or a job loss or an illness or something. And you're like, I don't like this. I want to change. But again, it's coming from that place of something's wrong and I want to fix it. So it becomes very outcome based. And so often then that fear is, well, what if I fail, And then there's also the fear of, I'm letting go of this identity and my security
Yes.
and all the things that I knew, because with transformation becomes a lot of uncertainty. Like to truly transform, we have to surrender, and we have to like take that leap of faith, and the white fluffy cloud like isn't there to catch us right away. And we're in this sort of free fall of uncertainty, not knowing the answer. And discovering these new parts of ourselves, and it ignites that part of us that's like, I want control, I want certainty, where is it?
Absolutely.
And so we often go back to old patterns because we know them. And you know, I mean, how many times have we heard a life coach say growth doesn't happen in your comfort zone? Well, you know, but we love our comfort zone because it's familiar and we can control it. So I think that, and then I think that there's also just the fear of, you know, as much as we want to like break family patterns and we want to change things in our life, we still have loyalty. We still have fear of what other people may think, and fear of like, you know, losing our friends and losing our family and losing what we thought we knew. And so it just kind of is like, well, I'll just make where I am okay. Versus I'm really going to take the leap and let go of everything that I know and transform. And I have found for most people, it takes like a dark night of the soul, like a total rock bottom moment to finally go, uncle, like white flag, I surrender.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's interesting, this whole like identification piece. And I love how you brought this up, because like significance, identity is one of our needs. Like we have to feel that at a fundamental level, and whether we meet that in a negative or positive way, we get to decide that. And so it's interesting, the identity of, you know, a crowd favorite, like I am not worthy, which we hear a lot. What is like some of the first steps that we can take to begin to unravel that identification from that core belief when we're so certain about it and we're so identified with it? What is like that first piece that we can work on?
Well, I think the first piece is truly acceptance. Like in order to change, we have to accept fully where we are. Because when we keep fighting against it, it's never going to change. So acceptance doesn't mean you necessarily have to like it. Same thing works with forgiveness. Like you don't have to condone something or agree with something to forgive it. You don't have to like something to accept it. But it's necessary to accept it, because with acceptance, there's less resistance. And whenever there's resistance there, it's really hard to change. So that's the first step. And then the second step is the belief that you can. And so many people don't think they can because they don't know how. That's okay. Like you don't need to know the how, but you need to believe that you can, and that it's possible for you. Even if you don't know the exact steps to get there. And then I really think no one, you know, we're not here to do everything on our own. And that's what's so great about being a human being, is we have so many resources, from other humans to books to podcasts to workshops to I mean, there's so much. So get a guide, like get a roadmap. Don't feel like you have to figure it all out on your own.
Absolutely. And I love that piece that you said, we're so addicted to the how, aren't we?
You
know, like I catch myself doing that, you know, still because that's how I grew up. And when I was going through like my struggles with food and body, it was always like, how am I going to get there? How am I going to get there? I want the steps, and releasing that, surrendering that, and just being like, okay, this is what I want. This is the feeling that I want. And I'm just going to trust that it'll all line up perfectly. That is it's still such a work in progress, because my mind constantly wants to like attach to like, how are we going to get there? What are we going to do? What's it like? What's going to happen?
Piece,
totally.
That's the certainty piece. And that's the masculine part of us. That's the left brain logical part of us. And that's a very important part of us. Like it's important to have a plan sometimes. However, and this is what's so amazing about, you know, being tapped into our feminine energy, is that when we surrender the how, it's like one step at a time, it's revealed. Like if I went back to 2005 when I started my career and told myself like what my career would look like, I'd be like, oh my gosh, how am I going to do that? Like I have no idea. And I didn't have any idea at the time. And I did not have a roadmap, but it was like one step led to the next, led to the next. Same with like big transformations in my life. For example, like I got off antidepressants after 20 years of being on them at 29. And even then I was like, how am I going to do this? And it was one step at a time. And so that's where that like grip to certainty comes up in the how. And it's really more what we have to focus on is the what and the why.
Yeah.
What do we want to feel and experience and why? Because that why is what pulls us forward. We push ourselves, we use away from motivation so much. We're trying to get away from what we don't like. We treat ourselves like a home improvement project. It's like broken, fix it. Versus like, what's your why? What's your vision?
Absolutely.
What are the things that you want to feel? And when we have the what and the why clear, then the how reveals itself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. So I want to talk about, so you mentioned like our masculine, our logical, like how do we do this in our mind? And so that's very like a logic based way of making decisions. And I'd love for you to speak on how can we viscerally know if we're making that from our mind, or this concept that you talk about of like intuitive decision making, like really allowing the visceral intelligence of our body to guide.
Yeah.
How do we decipher, like how would you explain that to someone?
Well, I think, you kind of have to experience it to really, really get it. But the logical mind is more reactive decision making. It's more thought-based. It's more like thinking through the plan and the strategy and trying to predict it and talking to people. And like it's making pro-con lists and all those kinds of things. Yeah. Whereas an intuitive decision making, and this is actually the free gift on my website that people can get, is really feeling into how the decision would feel. And so I walk people through the process, and that gift of like writing down on sheets of paper different decisions, laying the paper out on the floor and like stepping into each one, closing your eyes and seeing what your body does. Does it go forward? Does it go back?
Beautiful.
Seeing how you feel, really imagine yourself in that decision and seeing how you feel, and like trusting those sort of gut feelings that don't necessarily make logical sense. And the thing about intuition is that the logical mind likes to lay out steps 1 through 10. Yeah. Intuition's like, step 1, do this now. And then you're like, but what why? and then you do it and you're like, oh, well, when's step 2 gonna come? So it's the intuition doesn't always give us the full picture, but that's intuition and that's flow. And so, and we know when we're making logical decisions, like when we're trying to talk ourselves into something, versus really feeling like this is a yes. And the thing is, we can still feel fear and have it be a yes, because fear is not an indicator that we're making the wrong decisions. Oftentimes we feel fear because it's new. Because it's unfamiliar, because it's a big stretch for us, but it's not an indicator that it's quote unquote the wrong decision. So that's another part of discernment, is like, you can tell when something's like fear, like, no, don't walk down that dark alley, or like, no, don't date this person, or like, don't take that, like, you can feel that kind of fear that's more like a no versus a fear that's like, oh my God, yikes, this is scary, but I have to, yes.
Totally. Yeah, it's interesting. And I think one of the most powerful things that we can do is just like being aware of that visceral intelligence. And I know for a lot of my clients listening, they've been so numb to their bodies for so long. Right. Yeah. Because it's this whole thing of like, the piece that you said about like acceptance and taking action out of a place of acceptance, and you don't have to like it to accept it. I love that line. So thank you for sharing it. Yeah. But like this whole idea of like what our bodies communicate to us, our bodies can say yes or no, is such a foreign thing for a lot of the women and men listening, because they've been so disconnected. And so their MO for the majority of their life was, let's fix it. Let's take action out of fear. Let's hate our way skinny. Let's shame our way there. And so I love how we're getting into this, because it is so important to, not only, so yes, start with that acceptance piece of like, okay, we don't have to like our bodies. That's cool. We don't have to like it at all, but I get to accept it, because in that acceptance place, like you said, there's so much we can do from that. It's more malleable. It's more flexible. We can set the intention. So thank you. I love that piece. And just ultimately knowing that this is how we were designed to live, from this place of this intuitive space. And back in the cave, if we did not use our intuition, we would have died in a lot of cases. And today, we have this like beautiful, navigation system that we were like, oh, I'm just not going to worry about that. I'm just going to overthink and overanalyze and over stress out. And then we wonder why we're like, all the time. It's because we're not integrating. And so I think for those people listening where they're like, how do I even start? Like what's like a stepping stone of going from like 0 to like 0.1 of like, how can I begin to feel that like yes and no in the body?
Well, definitely we'll make that free gift available for people that are listening. They can go through the intuitive decision-making process, because that's a real active, like, how do I integrate it type of thing. But then it's just like practicing little things. Like when you go to a restaurant and you're looking at a menu, like instead of deciding with your mind, look at all the things on the menu and like see how it, like, picture eating it and see what your body does. Like just feel into like little decisions that don't really matter that much. Whether you have the turkey burger or the salmon salad, like it's not gonna make or break your life. So start with these like kind of little intuitive decisions in terms of, what do I want to do? Even something like and this is something I teach in the intuitive decision-making process, like just stand straight up and ask your body a question. Like, do I want to go to a movie tonight, or do I want to say yes to this date? And just see like, do I want to go to a movie, and see what your body does. Does it lean forward like to it? Or do I want to go on the date and your body goes way back? It's like, okay, that's a no. Just these little practices that we can do. And then in addition to that, like make space for your intuition to communicate with you, because intuition's a whisper. Unless it really needs to get our attention, like don't walk down that dark alley. Then it's mostly a whisper, and the mind is loud. The mind is like yakety yak all day long. And so in order to hear the voice of our intuition, it's like making that time be quiet. So every morning, even if it's 1 minute, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, set your timer on your phone and just sit and breathe. And listen to your breath and start like giving your intuition a chance to actually communicate with you.
Beautiful. I love that. And for those of you listening, we will put that link in the show notes so you can go grab that. It's interesting. Like this whole move down to San Diego, most people know this, but I recently moved down to San Diego, and it's so funny because I literally had no reason to move here other than the fact, like my body was like, go, right? And so it was like this total leap of faith, being like, okay, I know my body has had my back because here's the evidence of that. And I love that piece of like, just do the seemingly insignificant things that don't actually matter, like the salmon burger or the turkey burger or the salmon, to build up the evidence to understand that our body has this ability to do that. So I love that. And so after my 3-year recovery process, after my eating disorder, this is what I got to do with my body. It's like I was like my own social experiment. And so with this move of like, hey, sell everything you own, pack everything in your car and move down to San Diego, I could not have made that decision had I not built up the little tiny things that didn't matter 3 years previous. And so it's so interesting. Like moving down here, I'm like, okay, cool. I'm just going to do it. And then now I'm like, oh, I get to see why this was a good idea. And so every single day I wake up and I'm like, whoa, like looking back, even over the last 3 months, I'm like, everything is making so much sense as to why my body was telling me to move down here. And so it's this process of like, I know this is the right decision, and now I get to find out why.
Exactly.
And that's, it's such a freeing place to be.
Total liberation.
Total liberation. Okay. Your book, The Expectation Hangover. So cool. Love that name. Love that name. I would absolutely love to dive into this. I think, I say this a lot with my community, but attachment is the root of all suffering. We live in a world that is addicted to suffering, addicted to, all of that. So I would love to what was your inspiration behind this? Like what like really activated you to want to get this word out in the world?
Well, my first 2 books were for people in their 20s. That's how I got my start. And when I came around to write this book, I was going through a divorce at the time. And so that's an expectation hangover, right? And I was about 8 years into being a coach and spiritual counselor. And I'd seen a lot of people and had a lot of my own work. And I found a gap in the personal transformation world. There's kind of a quick fix mentality that is sold out there a lot. Like, just do this one thing and it will fix all your problems. And there's sort of a lot of emphasis on the mental, like just change your thoughts, and a lot of emphasis on the behavioral. And I wanted to take everything that I've learned. Like I said, I've had great teachers. Like my first coach, Mona Miller. I got my spiritual psychology degree from the University of Santa Monica. I'm NLP trained, hypnotherapy. I've had like priestess certified. Like I have so many different like tools. And then I developed my own from just working with so many people.
Yeah.
And when I went through my divorce, something that typically is so challenging and so hard, it was one of the most beautiful transformational times of my life, because I basically applied everything that I learned and milked it for all it was worth, and really leveraged it as an opportunity to transform and not just get over it, but really dive in and go, how did I create this? What is this triggering? What am I learning? All of these kind of things. And so Expectation Hangover was really a treatment plan for how to turn any disappointment into a massive healing opportunity. Not just how do you find the silver lining, because that's a very mental game.
Yes.
But like, how do you literally transform emotionally, mentally, behaviorally, and spiritually? And so that's what it is. It's how to like address this on all levels. And I start with the emotional, because that's what the one everybody avoids. And I know your audience and your work is so committed to that, because a lot of eating disorders are totally tied to emotional suppression.
Yeah.
And so I just was so inspired to like share how something even devastating can turn out into be like just this massive healing opportunity if you truly dive in.
I feel like that's like the pinnacle of self-mastery, is being able to truly change our relationship. Because I feel like it's like changing your relationship to pain. Right. Changing your relationship to like, what is that like funky sensation in our bodies when like things don't go our way? Yeah. And how can we use that as a catalyst for growth, rather than thinking that, oh gosh, my life's over. Yeah. And what am I going to do with all this pain? And can I handle this? And what's next? And I'm feeling lost. I'm feeling confused. And so I think it's such a beautiful thing. It's so funny. Like my teens, early 20s, I was such a victim to my pain. Yeah. You know, I was like, oh no, the world's happening to me. How am I going to survive? It was very like survival mentality. And all this pain was in my body was telling me, it was like, something's not quite right. Like there's something out of alignment. Yeah. And I was so pain adverse. I was so scared of feeling what those sensations would actually feel like, because I'm like, oh no, I can't go there, because there's going to be like a bomb that's going to explode. And there's all this stuff from over the years that I have not had the tools or the courage to face is going to blow up my face. I just can't even. And so in terms of pain, what would you say, like, again, like how do we get to that space where we feel pain in our bodies and we recognize that there's an opportunity there, rather than thinking we're a victim to it and thinking we're going to be suffocated by it? Yeah.
We learn how to like be with it. Right. And we learn that there's a part of us that's experiencing the pain. And then there's this other part of us that's super compassionate. And it's like there with us, and it's okay, you know, let it out. Like in Expectation Hangover, I teach something called the temper tantrum technique, which is basically like how to have an adult version of a temper tantrum. How to like,
yes, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, literally, we need that. Like,
oh gosh, yes.
Yeah, summer's coming up. Go and get one of those foam rubber noodles that people use in the pool, those floaty things. Cut it in half. You've got a great beater tube. Get yourself a big old pillow and a box of Kleenex, and like learn how to like feel your rage and anger and your sadness.
I love it.
And
I love it.
And it's not just about catharsis. It's really about release. It's not just like screaming, yelling like people do at workshops just for the sake of it. It's really like, I'm angry because I'm ashamed, because it's like getting that emotion up and out, because the longer we try to suppress pain, the more painful it becomes. And something that we avoid for years and years and years just exacerbates. So my encouragement to people is like, go for it, because it's just gonna take more energy to suppress it. It's just gonna deplete your body more. You're gonna hold on to more weight. You're not gonna be tapped into your creativity. Like it's gonna be harder to have a baby. Like just no holding on to pain is just no bueno.
No bueno.
And it perpetuates us as a victim. Because as long as we're carrying around pain, we believe that something bad happened to us. And so it's important that we process that pain and let that out so that we don't walk around with victim mentality or martyr mentality of like, I'm carrying all this pain.
Absolutely.
Blah, 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 blah.
Absolutely. And so because humans by nature, we're meaning making machines. We want to make meaning of it. It's like, what does this pain mean? And why is it here? And where does it come from? And is it because like my dad, left, or we always want to like figure out the meaning? Yeah, absolutely. How can we just like give ourselves permission to fully allow that emotion to just flow through us without the attachment of like making it mean something?
Yeah. Well, what's so great when you really like let your emotion release, and this is a great kind of bring it back to the ocean. Like you just ride the waves of your emotion, because in traditional talk therapy, it's hard not to make it mean something because you're trying to explain. There's a difference between me being like, explain my anger to you and why I have it versus I'm so angry. Like, there's a huge difference. One is talking about it. The other is actually experiencing it and moving it out of our body. And that's the difference between having a cry when we're like contracted and we're judging ourselves and we're trying to figure it out versus we're just like letting ourselves grieve and letting ourselves cry. And this is another thing we can do. Release writing. This was something else I picked up kind of in my spiritual psychology training. Just like writing, not journaling, like free form writing, like let it rip. It's so totally scribbly. You might be crying all over the page, and then rip it up or burn it when you're done. Like just like release, find ways to get it out. And going to boxing classes, dancing, exercise, that's all good. However, unless you're attaching kind of the words and the emotion, like with it, it just kind of moves the energy. It's better than nothing. True emotional release work is bringing the words and the feelings up and out, not just like moving energy around.
Absolutely. I love how you brought this point out, because a lot of people, what they do is they try and spiritually bypass it by doing something like productive, like say yoga or meditation. And it's like, well, you're actually missing the point of like sitting with the pain and letting it come out and like calling a spade and just really getting to the point.
Exactly.
You're going like, okay, I feel this, and it's a form of distraction, right? It's actually, even though it's a healthy thing, it's still a distraction and numbing. So I love that point of like, just allow it to just process. And if you're a vocal person, scream your head off. Or if you're a physical person, like punch pillows. I love the pool noodle idea. I might pick that one up.
It's a good one. It makes a nice little whack and it doesn't hurt your neck. It's a good tool.
It doesn't hurt your neck. You're like, I've thought this one through. This is
you
really
should see me at workshops. I'm like dragging like 50 pool noodles and like, like, what are we doing with those? I'm like, swimming. Of course.
That's actually so clever. I love that. Very, very good. Yeah. And what do you say to people that say, I'm just not an angry person? What's your thoughts on that?
I've never had someone say that to me.
Oh my gosh, really?
No,
I get it
all the time.
Oh, okay. I was like, I get this all the time.
Yeah. No, we'll be about to start like an anger burn at a workshop, and someone's like, I'm just really not angry.
I was like, you're probably the angriest person in here.
And they're the ones that are like, I don't know what my purpose is, and I can't tap into my creativity, and I'm still single. And, it's like a lot of those things is because you're angry. So, women, we aren't really encouraged to express our anger, even in our play, like we're not like playing war or anything like that. We're playing dolls.
Yeah.
And we're more encouraged in our sadness than we are in our anger.
Yeah.
And so a lot of women are scared of anger. Or they grew up in a chaotic, or not just women, people, or they grew up in a chaotic household where there was a lot of yelling. And so they made an agreement, like, I will never get angry. And like the yelling and the anger scares them. So for people like that, maybe I have them start with some journaling.
Yeah.
But it's like, if someone says they're not angry, oftentimes I'll say, well, do you experience irritability? Do you experience frustration? Do you experience a feeling of feeling like numb and stuck? I'm like, those are all forms of how anger leaks. You know?
Yeah. Do you think anger blocks our ability to be intuitive? Like, do you think when we have trapped anger in our body, okay, cool. Yeah.
Absolutely. Because anger is it takes a lot of energy to suppress anger. And we have to, and one of the ways that we suppress big emotions like anger, rage, shame, grief is we disconnect. And so as long as we're disconnected, then we're not able to really access our intuition. You know, and it's also really hard to know your life purpose and find your fire.
Yeah.
If you're angry, or even feel really sexually alive and turned on if you're angry. Because underneath our anger is our passion.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I guess it doesn't mean you have to go and process all your anger first before you can be intuitive. Correct. It's kind of like going, you flow back and forth between the two.
Absolutely. Just acknowledging it. Just knowing, like, and again, the ocean, it's like you ride the wave. You know, like something last week really upset me, and I don't get angry too often, but a button of mine got pushed, and I had to go in my bedroom and get some anger out because I, you know, didn't want it to manifest in other ways. And I could feel it. I started to feel like kind of depressed, and I started to feel like no juice from my work, which is a big red flag for me because I'm always juiced, and just kind of that
sluggish. Yeah.
And I wanted chocolate. Yeah. And I was like, okay, like I am pretty pissed off right now. I better go deal with it. And so you deal with it when it arises. Like for me, when I was getting off antidepressants, I had to do like some anger work every day because I was purging kind of so much repressed emotion and I was changing my brain chemistry. But it's not something that you have to do continuously. You clear out most of it and then you just deal with it when it comes up.
And it's so beautiful that we can be proactive about our anger so it doesn't transcend into aggression, which that's what happens with most people because they don't give the, especially women. That's such a good point. It's like we are so encouraged to be sad, like, oh, women are emotional, they're so sad, they cry all the time, and like, oh, men get angry and they get in bar fights. It's like, well, no, we both have that. Just socially, we've like not given ourselves permission to just like own that exists in both of us, both genders.
Right.
Yeah, I love that. I really do love that. And it's so interesting when, and I've seen it you've seen it, I've seen it at retreats, intimate experiences when you can literally see the energetics of a woman absolutely change after she gives herself permission to process this anger. Like you feel this incredible amount of lightness and ease and just like, I get to do this. It's like so empowering. Yeah. So empowering. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. So for those of you listening, figure out like, what's your thing? Like for me, it's, I'm a very vocal person. So when I was buying my vehicle, I asked the guy at the dealership, I was like, so like how soundproof is this car? And he was like, well, he's like, yeah, you can turn the music up and like, it'll be totally fine. Like you won't be able to hear. And I was like, oh no, it's just cause I love screaming my head off in my car when I get angry. And he was like, I'm not really sure.
Never been asked that question.
Are you joking? Or like, I was like, no, I'm totally serious. So I wanted to quickly touch on purpose.
Yeah.
Who am I? Why am I here? What is going on? What's my purpose? And I know that's such an overloaded, overwhelming question for a lot of people, and they have no connection to it. They have no idea what it means. They have no idea that like visceral excitement of like being on path. And so for those listening, where can they start to just uncover that and unpack it so it's not so daunting for them? Because I know that is a lot of people push that, right? Like find your purpose. And for those people who just have no connection to that at all, they don't even know what that means or what that feels like. Right. How can we ease people into that? What are some questions we can ask ourselves to kind of open up the gateways to be able to have those conversations with ourselves?
Well, I think purpose gets misinterpreted a lot because I think that a lot of times people attach purpose to career. Like that my purpose has to be tied to my job. And it isn't. Like really the purpose for all of us is to return to the love that we were aware of when we came in. Like to learn our life lessons, to grow in consciousness, and to know we are loved, to know that we are one, to know that we are inherently worthy and enough and deserving. And really the purpose of every human being on the planet is to love. Like that's it. And I don't mean like fall in love and have 2.5 children. I mean like experience love, like experience love for yourself, love for others. And then that gives us kind of more of a service mindset in terms of why we're here. And your purpose can be, if you want to go, build wells in Africa and bring water to people that don't have it, that's an amazing thing. But if you want to like have a job that you like and you express your purpose through creativity, or you want to be a mom or a dad, or you want to like carry mail, like it doesn't matter what form your career takes. It's who you are while doing it.
That's so beautiful. So beautiful.
That is our purpose, is to really heal ourselves and to resolve our unresolved issues and to break generational patterns. Like, I think this is an amazing time to be alive, and the consciousness of the planet is shifting, and people are either falling more asleep or people are waking up. And we're lucky that we're in this community that's waking up. And to me, that's my purpose, is to wake up. Now, my career is just how I express my gifts.
Beautiful. I love it.
So I think a good question when you're asking what is my purpose is to really ask, okay, like, and this comes through in the spiritual section of Expectation Hangover, when you take on a seeker mindset and you really explore your life like one big classroom, and you look at your life lessons, like, what's your soul's curriculum? What am I here to learn? What am I learning? Like, what is my, you know, where is my karma turning into my dharma? You know, what have my life experiences taught me? You know, and then from that, what am I uniquely qualified, not by necessarily schooling, but by life experience, to share?
Yeah. Yeah. That's so beautiful. That feels so expansive. Even when you say that, and I know there's going to be like a lot of shoulder relaxing after you sharing that, because it is, we live in a world where, like, you're right. Like, purpose is so tied to your job, how much money you make. You know, we're so driven by that. And then that's very tied into worth as well. It's like, if I'm not on purpose, then I'm not worthy. If I'm not making this, then I'm not worthy. And bringing it back to just love, like, what makes you come alive? Like, when you do that thing that makes you come alive, what is that? And do more of that, because that is where your purpose is. Like, lean into that feeling. And I know for a lot of women listening, they're mothers and they say, oh, I'm just a mother. Like, that is what that is just what I do. And it's like, that is like one of the most important jobs on this planet. Like, gosh, like, I applaud you for waking up every single day and like raising human beings who are ultimately going to be the next generation of this world. Like, that is huge. And I know they look at other women and they're like, oh, but she's, you know, doing this and making this amount of money and is a CEO of this company, and I'm just a mom. And so I love that piece of just like that you are on path. When you are recognizing and doing the things that light you up, you're on path. And it's important to just like stay on your path, because the moment we look and we look to the side and we go, oh, like, Julie's making $300,000. It's like, that's what distracts you. Right? Like, that's like that comparison trap, which can rip you of your experience of appreciating your uniquely, divinely creative path for you.
Yeah. And the great thing to do with comparison is it's projection. So we all know, like, you spot it, you got it. If someone triggers you, they're mirroring something to you that you don't want to look about inside yourself. But same thing with positive projection. So whoever you're jealous of, whoever you're comparing to yourself to, you see something in them that you're not owning inside yourself. So if you're comparing yourself to someone who's like got this wildly successful career and you're like, oh, whatever, I just have a job. Well, what are the qualities that you see in them that enables them to have this wildly successful career? And like, where are you not stepping into that? Are they a risk taker? Are they confident? Do they not care what people think? Do they trust their creativity? Like, and what are you seeing in them that you need to start seeing in yourself? That's how we beat comparison, is we use it as a tool rather than going, I need to stop comparing. It's like, if you're going to compare, if you're going to feel jealous, use it. Go, okay, like, great. Like, what do I see in this person that I need to see inside of myself?
Oh, that's like a beautiful way we can like shift like social media addiction, right? And like that addiction of social media. It's like change the conversation to what Christine just said and just like notice how much your mind expands into what's actually possible for you, because we're no different. Like, you have the power and ability that you have inside of you right now to do those things is ridiculous. And you just need to tap into it and get curious about it. I love that. Oh, I love that. We like social media. I know a lot of people like boo-boo it, but really, if we are smart about it, it can be the most amazing tool for us.
Totally. 100%.
Oh my gosh, girl, I could talk to you all day on here.
Aww.
Thank you
Likewise.
so much. Thank you so much. You're just a wealth of knowledge,
My pleasure.
wisdom, and amazingness. So where can we find you? What cool things have you got going on? How can we connect?
Thank you. Well, my podcast is probably one of my favorite things in the world. You've been on it in Coach's Corner. And then every week I coach people live on the air. So you can listen to me coaching somebody, and I break down the episode. I explain why I did what I did. People love it. They learn so much from it. So that's Over It and On With It. You can find it on iTunes. And then I'm on all the social media, Christine Hassler. You can sign up for the intuitive decision-making thing at christinehassler.com. And if you want to, like, one of the things that I'm really excited about is I have a membership community called Inner Circle. And every month we focus on embodying different qualities. There's meditation, there's a guided group call. It's a really stellar community. So you can find all that on my website as well.
Beautiful. And all those links will be in the show notes below. So thank you so much, my love. And I'm excited to see you. All right. Take care, love. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to this episode on the Hungry for Happiness podcast. You can join the conversation with women just like yourself at hungryonfacebook.com. Until next week, ladies, stay classy and badassy.